You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in Chris Carsten, CEO and managing attorney at Armada Law, entrepreneur, investor, team builder, and a lifelong learner. How are you, Chris? Good to see you.
I'm good, man. Benny, thanks for having me on, man. This is great.
For sure. And let me just mention that you are in Greenville, South Carolina. I like to say the location too. So I got to say, like, going through your story, there's so much in there, like in the story leading up to Armada Law, that like if we start talking too much about the story and you want to get right into Armada Law and like what you're doing there, like please let me know. I'm totally cool with that. So like everybody should have a chance to read, the few paragraphs that you sent over because it's super interesting and I think everybody could find a lot of value actually in it. So let's start like in Atlanta. So you're from Atlanta, and you stated at the beginning of the story, you talked about a certain maxim that you like live by when you wanted to become a lawyer. So we're just going to even start right up there.
Yeah, man. So,
excuse me.
I don't think about much like how I got started, like why I wanted to be a lawyer. And I was thinking about this and kind of getting ready for this conversation. And it really did get back to like my dad was a cop. Like I grew up a tough cop in downtown Atlanta in the 1970s. And I mean, I would always hear these stories. Like he was, I was born in 85. So it was a long time since he'd been a beat cop, but he'd tell me these stories just about what him and his kind of buddies used to do and the kind of stuff that they would get into. And I was just thinking, I'd be like, what? Like that would never happen today.
That doesn't sound like a good one.
No, it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing.
Right. Yeah.
But what it created in me was just this idea of like, people who don't understand the law or people who don't understand the way things work, the rules of the game end up getting taken advantage by the game. And just that stuck with me. And I had this drive to, that really drove me to be a lawyer. I thought I was going to do criminal law because I was like, I want to be criminal defense attorney. I want to protect people from
that whole thing's actually interesting because I feel like some kids might like follow and say, oh, that's cool, Dad. Like you should keep doing that. And like some people might sort of go with it, but you like kind of went against the grain. It sounds like a little bit like in your thinking, right?
Yeah, a little bit. And he had also evolved. So he wasn't that guy for me. Like he was older, but he would talk about it with such nostalgia, that I was like, this is not nostalgic. This is like, this is not cool.
Yeah, it's like, nothing tell me anymore, Dad. I don't want to be implicit on any of this.
No, nothing crazy, to today's standards. Like, we have some crazy stuff going on right now, but just the little things that I was just like, man, that's just mean. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like shutting down I-20. Have you ever been to Atlanta?
Yeah, actually, I was just there early November for the CRISP Summit.
Okay, cool. Yeah, those guys are great. That's amazing. I watched a virtual one of those. But anyways, there's like the perimeter around the city.
Okay.
Right? There's 20 lanes, whatever, insane. And he would tell me stories back in the 70s how they would just shut it down so that they could race their hot rods. Like the cops would just shut down the interstate. I'd be like, no, sorry, move, find another way so they could race their cars, like stuff like that. I mean, you never get away with these days.
Yeah, you could.
Anyways, to go back to the maxim, that was really the foundation of it, and I think kind of the drive started from there, and it evolved a lot to today. But yeah, that's kind of start.
No, that's okay. So like that's what you sort of started out with, and then you wanted to be an international lawyer, right? So But I think like what's kind of cool about that you didn't get into that much was you were working as like a bartender, right? And you were probably just shooting the breeze with somebody, and you can tell us what happened from there.
Yeah, my wife always jokes with me. She's like, there's not a job that you haven't done. Like I was, I think 12 and working at like these barns, just shoveling crap, like literally shoveling crap at 12 before and after school. And like was a referee just worked in pharmacy, like all this crazy stuff that now I'm grateful for, but I just had to, like, I had to work my way through school. I had to work my way through law school. So yeah, at night at law school, I was working at really a club in Atlanta, and I was working the door. I'm not a big guy, so I had muscle with me, but I was like the guy sitting there reading law books in the front. And I met this lawyer, and he used to party there a good bit, and got to know him.
So wait, let me get this straight. You were like studying torts as you were letting people into the club?
Literally, yeah.
Nice. That's
and
awesome.
they'd all be like, "Man, this guy's an idiot." Like, shut up, shut up.
I think I just saw an assault and battery down there. Hold on.
Yeah, exactly. But it was fun, It was like I'm in it, I'm making money, making decent money, being able to get to law school and all that. But also met a lot of interesting people, and met this group of attorneys, and just dumb luck, man. You know how it is. You just meet somebody,
Yep.
and meet somebody else, and yeah, that was it. Like I got to back up. I always thought I did want to be an international lawyer. Like I had this idea. I think I put it in there of just like flying first class, working with these high powered clients and all this stuff. And it's just, yeah.
So you met somebody, and where did that take you? You got a position in a firm, right? Like,
yeah, I got a position at a firm, like a boutique personal injury firm. So that was my first job out of school. Just lucky. Yeah.
What was that experience like? What was your first job at law school experience like?
It was different than a lot of people that were in my cohort. It was a lot of fun. Like I learned a lot, but also like partied a lot, frankly, like had a good time with the partner and with the friends in this group of folks. And it was a very work hard, play hard kind of mentality that I think a lot of attorneys have and develop, and then just continue down the road with.
So where did you go from there?
Yeah, so after that, that was a couple of years, and I kind of got to the point where it was like I saw the path. I saw the path of, if I keep going this way, like this is what life's going to be.
Like I read that like somebody said, "Hey, my goal is to get the window or whatever in their office."
Oh man, yeah. So actually, before that, right? I'm looking down at it, I'm seeing like, okay, I can either go down this path, personal injury law. At that point in my life, I was not mature enough. I was not like, focused enough for that. And ended up partying, having a good time, all this. Or the pendulum swung the other way. And I kind of looked back at that. Okay, let me try this international law thing. So I got lucky and got a position at Delta Airlines. And that's kind of where the window came from. And kind of made a huge switch from small business entrepreneur, work hard, play hard, to very corporate.
So you went from that small firm where you worked 2 years to Delta.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
I was a contract attorney with them.
For how long?
For about just over a year.
Over a year.
And that was the experience in the big firm. I say big firm, big company, corporate kind of deal.
Yeah.
That was just, it was interesting. And it also showed me, attorneys working for 12, 13, 14 years, and their goal was to get an office with a window. Like that was it. That was kind of, man, that was like my moment. I was like, this is not for me. Like I had this kind of entrepreneurship bug inside me too at the same time. So luckily I'd met my now wife. We have 2 kids.
Yep.
And through that process, we made the decision to leave Atlanta, got an opportunity to move to South Carolina, and that's how I ended up here.
That's awesome. And I mean, along with the window, I mean, it's cool to have a window, but you also want to be at a firm that like has a good like snack cart, like you want them rolling that thing through. I mean, that's like the big benefits of like the big firm or big industry, right? So
the one benefit of Delta was that you got free flights.
Free flights, yeah.
And not just for me. My parents also got free flights, Benny.
Right.
So when I told them I was leaving Delta, they almost that was almost it for me.
That's interesting because I worked at a hotel like front desk between college, and I would get like ridiculous rates like up in like hotels in Miami on like South Beach for like $59 a night, and they love that too, folks. So like so you are an entrepreneur. Like let's talk about that a little bit. Like you were at Delta, like I think you were home. I don't know like how far apart you were at Delta, and then you were at home at like a family dinner. Your brother sort of says to you in passing, "Hey, like you want to go into business," and like then it sort of went into this thing where you went into business. You could probably tell us a story.
Yeah, definitely. So I was moving to South Carolina. I'd never been to South Carolina. I knew nothing about South Carolina. Other than it was on the sign in Atlanta that we always drove by. So we ended up deciding to move there. There was a time in between, and my goal was to go take the bar, find a job, basically. I mean, I was a few years out of law school, so I hadn't established myself or anything like that. And two of my brothers are entrepreneurs. They've started companies. One of my brothers exited from a company. They did really well. So in the back of my head, I was always had this kind of bug or this idea that one day I would do that. And just another piece of dumb luck, we're sitting at a family dinner. I tell my brother I'm getting ready to move to South Carolina. And he's like, "Hey, I just started this company that's in the PI industry."
Wow.
And, which is, it's crazy, just again, the ways crazy things happen. Can you still hear me, bud?
Yeah, I could hear you. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. A phone call came through on this and it got me. All right. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So where was I? Yeah. So we're sitting at a dinner and literally it happened like that. It was like, "Hey man, you're going to South Carolina. Do you want to try to start these companies up there?" I just started it, that year. I think he had like 1 or 2 employees, and it was just like a crazy opportunity. So I had nothing else, and I was like, "All right, let's do it."
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I moved up, had really no idea what I was getting into. And, at that point, and you know how it is, you get out of law school and it's like, I'm a lawyer now. Like
Right.
I'm a lawyer. You have this idea of I'm going to go work for a firm and there's a certain status or this idea of it. And I went from that working from like a Delta Airlines to really a sales job, like starting from the absolute bottom.
Where were you licensed at that point?
I was licensed in Georgia.
Okay.
I was in the process as I moved to South Carolina of getting barred there. So I was studying for the bar at the same time.
Okay.
And it was just, "Hey, start this company from scratch." Great. What the hell do I do?
So he's telling you to start a company that's already existing elsewhere.
Yes, but it was existing in Atlanta, like in the pocket.
Right. It wasn't existing in South.
It wasn't a big, exactly. And it wasn't a big like infrastructure, all this. It was a startup. It was a startup there. And it was like, "Hey, if you need anything, let us know, but go out there and give it a shot."
So what did you do? Like, where did you start?
So I started with literally looking at a list of attorneys from Greenville and picking up the phone and dialing.
Okay.
And starting to meet people and network. And it started with, in personal injury, there's pre-settlement funding. I can go into the companies a little bit, but it was Peak Funding Group and Omni Healthcare. So I don't know if that's interesting, but it helps kind of paint the picture of what I was doing. Right. Peak Funding Group was really pre-settlement fundings for clients, for personal injury clients.
Right. For people who don't have to wait on their settlements, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as a practicing attorney, like it's not something I like to do because it's expensive money and it makes settling hard. So there's a lot of reasons that attorneys don't like that.
Okay.
And then the Omni Healthcare was the medical side that we helped manage and fund treatment for those same clients. So there's more value on that side, but it's a little bit more challenging because you have to have a network of doctors. And then you also have to have the attorneys who trust that you're going to help manage, medical care and take care of their clients. So the easiest sale is pre-settlement funding. There's a ton of companies out there that do it. The commodity, right? So basically I was like walking into a new market as an attorney, just just starting sales and trying to sell a commodity, more or less. And it was brutal. Like it was terrible. But I mean, you could just imagine, I'm sitting there, and I think I read this to you. Like I have this moment etched in my brain of sitting in my like 900 square foot apartment with my wife, and it literally in my underwear, looking at a list of attorneys and like palm sweaty, trying to call these folks, trying to get them to work with me. And they're like, who are you, kid? What are you talking about?
What are you talking
So that was the beginning, man. That was the beginning. And it kind of just, it went from there. And, I learned a ton.
Did you get like one lucky break that sort of led you to be able to keep doing it?
I just kept meeting people, and I would sit down, learn more about them. One or two people would trust me. They'd introduce me to somebody else. They introduced me to somebody else.
So what kept driving you with it then?
Fear, number one, just fear of I can't fail. Like I have to do this. And then just this internal drive to succeed. Like I have to make this work. I know this can work, and I got to make it work.
Right.
But fear is real. And I think everybody goes through it, whether you're starting a law firm or they're starting a business or they're starting a new position where you have to get out of your comfort zone. Like there's that just fear. And that was one of my drivers.
So Chris, what would you say like makes the best entrepreneurs?
It's a great question. I mean, it goes back to drive and hunger. It just is it. You've got to want it, because a lot of things suck, frankly. A lot of stuff you got to do every day just sucks as an entrepreneur. This idea that it's, and I think it's promoted, especially these days with like Instagram and all that. It's like, oh, I'm going to get on Instagram and this, and I'm going to be super successful. And it's like, no, man, that's not how that works.
Right.
It's you always hear back to another maxim of like, it takes a long time to be an overnight success. It's waking up early. It's just grinding in a lot of ways. So I think that's it. And that'll get you over so much. And then a bias towards action. So just taking massive action, not sitting down and calling 10 people, like calling 100 people.
So go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, please. So those kind of two things of just a hunger and then the action behind the hunger. And then you just got to learn, you figure stuff out.
Right. So where were you in the process of like the company that you were building, like with the cold calls to PI attorneys when you found out that you passed the bar or whatnot?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I was probably close to a year in, a little over a year into it. So had started to get a little bit of momentum. Yeah. And could see the path and could see like this could really be something. The Atlanta market was growing, our market was growing. And I had hired, my first couple people. So
wow.
That's
amazing. And after how long? How long did that take?
It was like 9 months to a year.
It's amazing. So I guess if you hired people, you couldn't be sitting around in your underwear anymore, huh?
No. That was like 3 to 6 months. And then,
that's crazy.
But the best part was my first office. And I think thinking about being an entrepreneur too, you look back at those hard times and you look back with such nostalgia. Because my first office, I rented the corner of a guy's, like an insurance salesman's office. Okay. And I had one little desk. And I had like motivational quotes, like freaking everywhere. And I'd like read it. I'd get myself pumped up. And then I'd call an attorney and get shut down. I'd be like, shit, all right, do it again. But so once I passed the bar, I had already kind of I was already moving in a direction, So I was like, hey, I can go back and practice, but I'm already.
But you liked it. It sounds like there was something. There sounds like you had some sort of like energy within the sales that you kind of liked. Like you liked making that sale, like even though you were getting shut down a little bit, like the growth, you were really kind of digging it a little bit.
Yeah, and I look back, like it wasn't as much the sale; it was like the building. It was we were building something. I was building, and then the fact that like I got to hire my first person, and that was cool. Like that was a really cool experience. And then it's like, okay, we're not just doing the sales. We're not just building. We're building a culture. Like we're building a team.
Right.
that's always been really motivating to me too. So as that got bigger, as we started to expand, that drive just kept going.
So we talked about what makes the best entrepreneur. Like, what advice would you have for someone trying to be a new entrepreneur? I mean, we do see it a lot. You're definitely right. With Instagram, everybody's coining themselves an entrepreneur on Instagram. I think back long ago, it was a whole different set of things. When somebody would say they're an entrepreneur, people would be like, "What the hell does that mean? Like, that's so odd."
Mm-hmm.
These days, it's sort of like cool to say you're an entrepreneur because you see it all the time on, social media, whether or not somebody is an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So what advice would I give? Have a clear vision. I know that sounds kind of woo-woo, but really like know what you want. Know what the end result is.
Okay.
Don't get into it just because you think you should or because you think it's cool, whatever that is. Like really know what you want at the end of the day, and do that work because that's kind of hard work,
Yeah.
And I think as attorneys, like I think like something that drives me a lot is we're not taught business in law school. We're not taught how to run a business. We're taught to think like lawyers. And, maybe that's changing now. Maybe it's changed since I was in school, but it was, you want to get that associate position. You want to get to that partner position. You want to go like this. And stepping out and trying to start your own business, it's just a totally different set of skills. And they're skills that have to be developed and take time. So I think knowing the vision and then really having a beginner's mind and just a growth mindset and just going out and trying to be resourceful and learn. And if you have that, I think if you have like that motivation and that drive to learn, like you will figure it out. It might take a while. You're going to fail a ton. I failed, failing yesterday and today, like all the time, but you'll eventually get there.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. So like, this is sort of a broad question, but we always hear about scaling a business, right? Mm-hmm. So like, first of all, just generally, what does it mean to scale a business? And what is your best advice for somebody trying to scale a business?
Yeah. So I think the hardest thing to do, well, at least that I've found, is just thinking about the customer experience. Like it's one thing to handle 10 clients and to give we call it CAMBI, like kick-ass mind-blown experience in Armada. But it's easy to do that in a way if you're really client focused with 10 people. Getting that to 100 people, that's a whole different mindset. It takes a whole different set of skills. So when I think of like scaling, it's building the infrastructure, it's building the systems, the processes to recreate over and over again that experience for the client. And the internal, like how we do what we do. So I mean, that is it to me. And that just, it's really challenging. And there's so many different parts of it, from me, like managing the owner on a day-to-day basis. Like what should I be doing every day in order to grow a business, in order to scale a business? And then what should the team be doing? What should the team look like? Seats on the bus? Like there's just, there's a lot of different things you have to get right. And we did it pretty successfully at Omni, the previous company. And that, evolved into us growing, being acquired, and, eventually having an exit and being wrapped into a bigger company. And then coming back into the small business world, frankly, man, in the beginning of Armada, like I tried to scale too quickly. Okay. And that's a danger too. And it's a trap that I fell into really this year, of like having the mindset of I want to grow, I want to scale, I want to, be big. And I think a lot of attorneys have that, right? Start my own firm. What do I want to do? I want to blow up. I want to see, make a bunch of money, whatever your drive is. And then we outgrew our infrastructure. We outgrew our team. We outgrew a lot of things. And then the client experience falls off. So I know it's a lot of, I kind of want a bunch of.
No, have you written like any articles or books or anything? That sounds pretty cool, man.
Yeah, no, I haven't. It's something that, you said this is a passion project of yours. Like I have it's my passion too. Like I want to start trying to give this stuff away a bit. Like I
Yeah.
have had a lot of experiences. I'm still learning every freaking day. So, but no, I mean, it's, that's on the agenda.
Well, it's actually interesting that you come there, because my next question was, so I don't know what the year this was, but you ended up scaling your business and you got bought out by a private equity firm. And then I wanted to just ask, do you know, like what year was that? Like when was that? And like what lessons have you learned? I know you just shared, like, don't try to scale too quickly. It sounds like you were trying to like maybe dive in and do what you did at Omni, like kind of quick or whatever. But so like how long ago was it that the equity firm took it, and what lessons did you learn?
That's a great question. 2019 is when the sale happened. So I moved to South Carolina in 2015. So between 2015 and 2019, we went from zero. My team, we went from like 4 people to 30 people over those 4 years.
Wow.
I went from nobody here to, I think we had 8 or 9 people on the team in South Carolina specifically. And there were 3 partners. My brother was majority owner. It was me and one other guy. Okay. And so that happened. We were acquired, and then we were rolled into a bigger company that had 100 people.
Wow.
Plus people. And, everyone has this idea of what it means to sell a company. And I think, especially in the entrepreneurial, that's the goal. I'm going to buy or start a company, scale it, grow it, and then sell it to the next guy.
Let me stop you right there. So like, don't some people like have some, like, what if you wanted to keep a hand in the company? Because like it was your baby, you built it up, and like you wanted to sort of, and not just financially, but like you wanted to keep sort of doing a piece of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And obviously maybe retain some sort of like percentage. But how does that work? Does that not work that often with these type of situations?
Man, I can't speak to how it always works, but I will say that the experiences that I've had. So for instance, our experience in 2019, we sold it, but I was still in the company for another 2 years. So there's typically an earn-out period where they keep you engaged. And depending on the direction of the company, sometimes they'll want you to take a larger role in the bigger company, or, you kind of get phased out. So I think it depends on the company, but that wasn't the situation as much with the company that acquired us.
With this company,
That's right. So it was interesting. We go back to lessons, and I was really excited about it. Right, I wasn't the majority. It wasn't mine, So a couple things. One of the reasons why, I didn't have as much of an emotional connection. I started the South Carolina market. We started the company there, grew it, but it wasn't my baby. I know that sounds weird.
No, I got you.
I didn't start it. My brother started it. He's a great entrepreneur. I was one of the owners, and we did well. But at the end of the day, that wasn't mine. And what we created in South Carolina, the team we created, was awesome. And then one of the lessons is it's really hard when you sell a company to maintain the culture. That was one of the biggest things, and not just maintain it, but how important everyone talks about culture. It's this kind of, especially in the legal world, which is really interesting. And this part of what drives me is I look around at a lot of law firms, and it goes back to us not being taught as lawyers how to, business. What are you talking about? I've got a deposition. I've got this. I got this to do. My support staff will handle it. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So in being out of that and being like in the kind of the entrepreneur world different, it's just, I got a different respect for that. And then also got to see working really hard to build it, and then being enveloped into another company that had a very different culture. And that, and it was just different, and it was very challenging to maintain. So that was one of my biggest lessons is it's really hard to build. It's easy to go away if you don't maintain the right, people, and you don't really cultivate it. Mm-hmm. So I think that was one of the biggest ones. Another is bigger is not always better.
Yeah.
Like bigger is not always better. You have the idea of, oh, we're going to go to this bigger company, we're going to have this bigger reach. But what that can turn into is a lot of hierarchy, a lot of corporate governance, a lot of just crap and things not getting done.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
That kind of thing. That could have been just my experience. So I don't want to say this to, as a blanket statement, but
Sure.
that's just some of the things we ran into.
Right. So that was 2019 when you sold Omni. That's good. That's really interesting. All of that about sort of like how a small company gets absorbed. So how did you finally? Now we're at Armada Law, right? So like
Yeah.
2019, like how did you get back into being practicing law? What made you want to do that? Just tell me everything.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's kind of a roundabout way. So 2019 through 2021, I was still with Omni. I was still there for 2 years working in Earnout. Got to the point where just, alignments were different. It was time for me to kind of move on. Throughout that period, I had in my head, like, I want to be a CEO. I want to go acquire a company, likely not in the legal field. I want to go out and start something. Really acquire it, like entrepreneurship by acquisition. So that was just the idea that I had, and started looking at different companies, started due diligence, like getting really in that, learning more about the business side too, from the financial side, because I'd been in the people side, but not really the finance side. Numbers, attorney, just didn't work very well. So learned a lot there. Ended up leaving, had a company under contract, was about 3 weeks away from closing on it. And the deal fell apart. The owners backed out.
Yep.
It was 2021. It was like a crazy frenzy. They were making a bunch of money and thought that they would get a better multiple with somebody else later on. And I was left like, I had no job. I was sitting there. I was about to buy a company. The company fell through, and I was kind of like, "What am I going to do?" I had a brand new son, and just to go back to dumb luck, I had lunch with a guy. I was talking with a bunch of people. I had lunch with a guy who had experience running law firms, and just throughout the conversation, he's like, "Man, you know a lot of people in this industry, like you understand it really well. Why don't you start a law firm?"
Yeah, nice.
You know what I mean? And it was one of those moments
Sounds
where
like that just sounds like people who aren't lawyers would say, like, let's just start a law firm. It's just
exactly.
It's just funny, like that whole.
No, it is funny, but it was kind of an aha moment. I was like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Let's do this. So literally, man, I'm not kidding. That was like on a Friday. By Monday, I had kind of put a plan together and gotten back and filed papers, and I was like, let's roll, let's do this.
That's awesome.
So that was it, and the driver was, it was all the things I wanted to do in the company I was going to acquire, but I was just thinking about my time in law and like being in a bunch of different law firms and learning a bunch about the cultures and learning about how a lot of firms are run, not because for any bad reason. It's just there are a bunch of lawyers running businesses. And so one of my drivers was just, I want to try to build an outstanding law firm as a company, and kind of use what I had from the business world and turn that into a strong law firm.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. So like, where are you now with the firm? Like, how many employees? Like, what kind of cases are you taking? Personal injury?
We're really focused on personal injury right now. It's what I know. It's my experience.
Yep.
And we have 8 people right now on the team. We are, a year and 2 months into it. So we've grown pretty quickly, generally. And it's fun, man. It's fun. Like it's been great being back in the fight, dealing with insurance companies,
Wow.
talking to clients, actually helping people, which for a long time I didn't feel like we were really effectively doing.
Right.
And it's nice to be kind of back in it and building something different, really trying to build a firm that's focused on educating, empowering, and bringing up who traditionally are, support staff and really working and developing. Like, we've got some really great young people that are non-attorneys, that are quick studies, and that are doing a lot of really good work. So I'm just excited about that.
Are you going to court, or are you doing a lot of settlements, or are you sending somebody out to court? How's that working?
Doing a lot of pre-lit. So my focus right now is on pre-lit, and just because of my experience, I know a lot of really good litigators, and I also know my lane. And
that's awesome.
I'm
Yeah.
really good at building a company, building systems, and I want to, hire and refer out cases to the best litigators in the different markets. Right. So right now we're in South Carolina, but I'm licensed in Georgia, South Carolina, DC, getting barred out west in Arizona. We have people who are barred in North Carolina. So we're handling cases in a lot of different areas. And really utilizing technology. Like you and I sitting here having this conversation. Right. COVID's changed how clients expect to be communicated with. Right. So what we're doing is having these conversations with clients. They don't need to come into the office.
But so when clients come in and say, I'm going to talk to Chris, like, I've heard he's a good lawyer, I have my case. Do they know that somebody else might be litigating or like doing the pre-lit for their case? Or if it goes to trial, do they know somebody else might be taking it? How's that?
That's a great question. So first off, they know we work as a team. They know that it's not just Chris. There's a team of folks who are helping them out. So we have client experience people who are dealing with the client communication and helping them, if they have questions. Of course, everything will ultimately come to me. But we have some very real conversations. Hey, if this needs to go to litigation, then we're going to work with the very best litigating attorneys in whatever area that you're in. So, those conversations are had up front. And I think people really like it. I think I go back to, a lot of what we do is we focus on the legal side, and we do a lot of good work there as attorneys, but really focus on what does the client need in that moment.
Right.
Experience. So that's really what we're focusing on, what we're trying to create a really great client experience that is treating the whole person, let's say, not just their case.
Yeah.
So that's something that we're trying to differentiate, and we care about a lot, and the team cares about a lot. So, yeah.
Do you think PI lawyers end up having the same? You talk about systems, and I've had other conversations on this show about systems, and like that sort of seems to be like a theme. Mm-hmm. I know lawyers do things different; they write different, they have different approaches. But like, do you think a lot of PI lawyers have this similar type of systems? I know that might be like
probably
hard to answer. But...
No, I think it's a fair question. I think a lot of PI attorneys would like to have the same systems. I think they'd like to operate at the most efficient ways. They'd like to have hiring systems and run their businesses like the folks at Crisp, for instance.
Yeah.
They have, wonderful ideas and wonderful ways, but there's that, and then there's the day-to-day. It's me as the managing attorney taking the time to step away from that and focus on the business, focus on systems that work, or hire somebody that, is a great operations person. So probably so. Probably a lot of, especially larger attorneys, especially marketing attorneys. I think they do pretty well at that. I think the smaller firms, the 1, 2, 3 attorney firms, it's really challenging.
Yeah,
because they've built based on, on being a technician, not necessarily being an owner.
So there was some mention in the story. I can't really point to it right now, but I did write down this question. So maybe you could tell me what surrounds it and have a response. So like, give us some advice for someone who suffers from self-doubt around taking a big step in life or doing something that they truly want to be doing.
Oh man, that's great. So first off, I've struggled for a long time with fear and self-doubt, like just have. Getting through law school, fear as a driver, feeling like I'm not enough, feeling like, I'm not good enough to be in law school. I'm not good enough to, all that. And I think we all struggle with that a bit. But seek out folks who, or resources, I should say, seek out resources that have already figured this out. And I was lucky in the sense that I was like, I hate this. I do not want to feel this way. You get to a point where like, this sucks.
Yeah.
So I found, this guy named Darren Hardy. He wrote the book called The Compound Effect. And that kind of got me open to, oh, okay, well, this is interesting. And then that opened up to like a Jim Rohn thing, and then some Tony Robbins stuff. And and they're just, I would say, start packing the tools, like start figuring out the tools in the toolbox in order to help identify the stories. I had a bunch of different stories about what I could and couldn't do, and
the story, you mean the narrative in your head?
The narrative in my head, right?
Okay.
The stories I would make up about what it means if this attorney, for instance, cold calls. What does it mean if this attorney says no? It means there's something wrong with me. It says blah, 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 blah. Just making all these stories when in reality, it means nothing.
Right.
So
you're saying find somebody who has kind of gone through it and gotten through it. I don't know about over it, but gotten through it and is like doing okay and seeing the world in a different perspective now.
I would say find resources.
Okay.
Seek out. There's a lot out there right now with self-improvement. There's always been stuff out there like that. But what has worked for me in the past has been folks like Tony Robbins, folks like I go back to Jim Rohn, right? The old school kind of self-improvement person. I'm just kind of a junkie and all that.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Those kind of things, if you can get over kind of the stigma or like the woo-woo-ness of it, it's really helpful. It's really helpful. So seek out, read, attend conferences. I think there's something very powerful about immersion learning, which we don't do very often. We'll do it for a 3-day CLE, but going and doing something that is just focused on you and your mindset is a little bit harder to do. But there's a humility about it too, I think, of just like, I don't know, and as an attorney, that's hard sometimes to be like,
it's hard to admit. Yep.
I don't know. I don't know how to do this. This is
right. So, thanks for sharing that. That's really interesting. I think a lot of people suffer with, or I don't know if like what you described as like imposter syndrome or that sort of thing.
Absolutely. There's a ton of
that on the show. What's that?
No, that's a great way to say it. It's 100% imposter syndrome, especially once you start seeing any kind of success. Then it's like, oh man,
I don't deserve this. Why am I here?
I don't
sort of thing.
Yeah, and then what if it goes away? Like you would start identifying with the success or identifying, well, if I'm not this, then who am I?
What do you mean when it goes away?
If it goes away. So or at least I, again, have in the past identified with the success of something. If Omni fails, then I'm a failure, as opposed to those are independent things.
Yeah, right.
I can do the best I can possibly do, fall flat on my face, and that's okay.
Right.
Like it doesn't say anything about so that, it's a mindset that has taken a long time to cultivate, and I think that it's a daily practice.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. So, like, what's next for you and for Armada?
So what we're excited about right now is 2022 was a kind of a year of learning for us. We grew very fast. Mm-hmm. We had some failures, we had some turnover on the team, and this year we have a strong core, and I'm excited about just continuing to build the foundation for a great company. We have opportunities in a couple different states to expand into.
Awesome.
And just continuing, again, I go back to like the team and the culture, continue to build a really strong team, strong training for the team. And I know a lot of attorneys that you talk to have already built like large companies, right? So we're still in the nascent stages of this. So there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of
awesome
passion and work from the team. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah. What is Armada anyway? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, it's great. So I didn't want this to be the Carsten law firm. Yeah, there's something about that I wanted this to be about the team of the company and not about me. So we went through tons and tons of names. It turns out personal injury attorneys are really good at taking every good name that there possibly can be. So we went through tons and tons of names, and somebody came up with Armada. And you start thinking about, what is an armada? An armada of ships. It's a show of force. It's a bunch of different independent ships working together, moving in the same direction. So that was something that resonated with us. And I'm a ship guy. Like, I love the idea of sailing. So it kind of all worked together.
Perfect. That's awesome.
And then for me personally, part of my passion is just, I was out of law. I got back into law, and helping. I talked to a lot of attorneys, and they're like, "Hey, man, how do I?" We talked about it a little bit. Like, I'm trying to grow. Like, what should I do? Like, what's mindset wise, or anything like that? So part of what I want to do too is work with other attorneys and work with really other business owners of just how do you build your business? Like, how do you deal with the mindset of building a business, deal with the structure. So that's something I'm passionate about, and working with other people and helping other people. So along with Armada, that's something that is a driver for me.
I think that's great. So any advice for somebody who wants to launch their own firm?
Yeah. Just do it, it sucks and it's challenging in the beginning, and just enjoy it, because you will be successful. Like, if you work hard, if you take advice from other people, if you follow a good pattern, like you will be successful. But just start and try to enjoy the journey along the way. And just don't give up. I mean, there are a number of times where I'm like, I got to shut this thing down. Like, this is it.
Yeah. I think enjoying the journey is like a huge part of it. I love that when somebody says enjoy the journey, because I never thought about it, but I sort of understand it now, like with something like Lawyer Stories. Like, I'm just kind of enjoying the journey and meeting people like you and being able to talk to, attorneys. It's just been a pleasure.
And kids help too. I had my two kids, man. Being with them and see how they see the world has just made me be like, man, yes, we do important things, but at the end of the day, we got to enjoy this ride.
Everything goes out the window when it comes to them, right? So, is there anything that we left out that you want to talk about or that you want to mention?
No, man, this has been great. I appreciate you having me on, man. You do a lot of great work, and I love hearing the stories of all different kinds of people and all different kinds of walks. It blows me away that you have a full-time job, executive director, and at night you're sitting here doing this. I mean, that's a whole level of hustle. I appreciate it. And
I love it, man. I sat behind here one day, and it hit me that, like, I don't know how many episodes in I was, but it hit me that, like, I found something I like. I mean, I love my full-time job. It's amazing. I'm really grateful to have and do what I do. But when I sat back here and I was like, wow, like, I think I found something that actually, like, I really, like, should be doing in a way, So thank you for that. I appreciate your kind words, man. I hope we stay in touch. We have Lawyer Stories Connect, which is being launched in 2023. So I'll send over the link for that for you to join up and let me know what you think of the platform. And it should be good. I'm trying to, I like to introduce people, so if you ever see anybody on the platforms that you want to meet, it's my pleasure to do a warm introduction.
Awesome. I appreciate it, man. Thank you, Betty.
You got it. Stay right there. And everybody, thanks for tuning in wherever you are in the world today. Enjoy yourselves. Cheers.